to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
The two most common elements in the universe are hydrogen and stupidity.
And Dale Hummel.
Life is a long lesson in humility.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
I know what you're going to start with. I just know.
What?
The Queen.
Well, she died like 2 years ago, and today's just the funeral, so I don't know what to tell you.
Every day is the funeral, it seems like.
I think this is the last day.
I heard there's a something going on in Washington, D.C. next week or sometime that President Trump was invited to.
I don't know. I have heard nothing about that.
They're talking about billions of people watching this. You want to know why billions of people are watching this?
Because they're not working.
And there's nothing else to watch. That's all they cover. That's it. There's nothing else going on right now. There's no war. There's no border problem. There's nothing. Just the Queen.
No, the border problem is fixed. DeSantis and my governor are flying them all to Martha's Vineyard and to Camel Toe's house. It's fixed. I think we need to make a change. Let's not fly them. Let's just get big trains and just start going up there by the thousands on train cars. Probably be more economical.
It would be, and I mean not inhumanely by any means, but I'm very much in favor of what they're doing, and I know they're catching a lot of heat for it. But I believe it's the only way to shed light, because the mainstream media there is no recession, there is no border problem, there is nothing, and without something like this, they're covering up everything they need to cover up to get through the fall elections. It irritates me to a level I can't explain. Hypocrisy on display here with our leading Dems. This is what we should have covered last week, and I forgot. That little White House party they had to celebrate the inflation reduction bill that had nothing to do with inflation reduction, while inflation was at a 40-year high of 8.6%. What about that hypocrisy?
And I don't understand why you even listen to any of that.
I don't know. I get so angry. What about the class warfare that's going on when they send the illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard? What do they do with them there?
Did they send them to a military base?
They sent them they brought out the National Guard for 50 people. Think about how many Texas is encountering every day. 50 go to Martha's Vineyard. They bring out the National Guard to transport them to a Cape Cod military base. They had to get them off the island because that is the playground of the rich and famous left, period. And they don't need that. That's for them, not for others. I remember a lady came on and said, we have a housing shortage. We don't have room here. That is where past President Obama has a mansion with like 27 bedrooms. He could have held all of them.
I don't think he offered.
No, and more vacation homes there than anywhere, yet we don't have room for them. They have a homeless shelter. It looks like a damn mansion. They say only holds 10 people, just 10. That's it. We don't have room.
Oh, ma.
Think about those border towns that are just overwhelmed, and they're calling out a national emergency over 50 illegal immigrants being sent there. That is a sanctuary city that is supposed to be very welcoming and very friendly. So it's just like we saw during COVID, and these politicians, governors, mayors, whatever it may be, they'll make this policy, but that's for them, not for me. And that is the bottom line. We have the extreme left that is up on their pedestal dictating all these things that they want to happen, yet that none of this applies to them. They're above it. They're the elite. Very, very angry about these things.
I could not tell it all.
No, I am. I promise. I promise. I can go on forever about those things. But let's talk about the 2 million is what the apparent number is that we've documented into the country. Now, how many undocumented? Who knows? And when we say documented, I don't know what that even means anymore. Okay, we talked about this a little bit last week, Ryan. How are those 2 million people surviving? If we can't employ them legally, I don't know if they're getting health benefits. I have no idea how this is supposed to work. None. Is Joe encouraging them to work illegally for cash? Is that what he wants? I mean, I don't know what else can happen. I have no idea.
What I don't understand is they can't even be really surviving off the government because they haven't done all the paperwork and all this other stuff. They're just like walking across the border. So
Yeah, I don't think they have an established resident to receive a government check. I am so confused, but I tried to look this up. I woke up at 2 a.m. and this was bothering me.
Imagine that.
I tried to find out how these people were surviving, and I'm all for treating them all the things that you can possibly do. I'm just not for bringing 2 million in that we can't sustain. But under the circumstances, you can't find anything out there that I can locate on how they're surviving or what the intentions are. Just like when President Mr. Crazy Ass Joe was sending them all on airplanes in the middle of the night to the different states, mostly red states, to repopulate, you could find almost nothing about that. We have one video clip I think you'll see on Fox News going into somewhere in New York, I believe. But there were hundreds of planes that were sent in the middle of the night to these different locations, and we've got one video of it. You can find nothing about the numbers that he sent or anything like that. When he did it, it was fine. When these other governors do it, it's the worst thing.
The devil, kidnapping, yes.
The devil, yeah. But Biden's already sent thousands that way, and he dictated where they went. And I think that's just what it was all about. And it really, really, there's a lot of things that are concerning me. And I got a little more sleep, even though I did wake up for a little while last night. So I have thought about these things a little more, and I'm a little wound up about it.
I'm clearly couldn't see this.
Do you know how many border agents we have?
Not 87,000 new IRS.
That 87 new ones being employed this year. We have 15,000 border agents, Ryan. And they say 70% of them are tied up basically bringing the illegal immigrants into a processing area where there's only 30% actually out there trying to protect the border, where we will increase up to 166,000 IRS agents by next year. And we have no intentions of increasing a single Border Patrol agent. Actually, our numbers are falling because they can't deal with it. Remember, one of my families down there that I talk about all the time is a border agent. He is going to get out just as quick as his retirement will allow him to. He says it's so bad he just can't do it. And I think there's probably a lot of them in that situation.
I don't know. Like I'm not being over dramatic like you are, but I really don't know how you could even possibly work in that environment that it's in right now. Not just because of all the craziness people working in, but like I would feel like such a failure, even though you can't possibly do your job correctly. But I would not be able to do it. I could not.
No, and I think that's the feeling they're getting, and that's why they want out. They aren't jumping out now because a lot of them are close to retirement, and if they don't stay until a certain age or a certain number of years, their pension and their retirement is going to be severely affected. So I understand why they're staying on, but it's got to be very, very challenging. I mean, so frustrating. I'm frustrated up here just thinking about it. I can't imagine what they're doing. Who's Joe Biden's biggest friend?
Does he have one?
Any guesses? Who's their? Not me. It's not me. He does. He has a couple huge buddies.
Who?
The Mexican drug cartel.
Oh.
It's making them billions and billions. And China. They can get away with almost anything under him.
Oh, ma.
Terrible friends to have. Just terrible. Trump did not have those friends. Did not. No way. Did we talk about last week the millions of barrels out of our reserve that went to China to some company that Hunter had connections with?
No, I did not know this.
Yeah, at least 2 million barrels went to China out of our national reserve. How is this even possible?
Well, evidently, Joe thought China needed oil.
Yep, Hunter still got a little political clout, doesn't he?
I don't know. Is Hunter alive?
Still has it. I think they've got him under wraps.
I was going to say,
very tied up. And
nobody's seen Hunter. I don't even know if Hunter's alive.
No, I don't know either. Our national reserves are at the lowest level in history, and they're supposed to be used for emergency purposes only. And somehow we've forgotten that.
That's your brother, Joe Biden.
Speaking of the cartel, fentanyl. Do you have an opinion there?
Do I have? No, I've never done fentanyl, so I don't have an opinion.
Obviously China's supplying the raw ingredients. The Mexican cartel's making a fortune bringing it in. It's crazy the number of pounds and pills that are coming in rainbow colors and all those things. So on a serious note, not on my tirade, but on a serious note, I have 2 younger children still in high school, one that just came out of college and one that's still in college. And I speak to them, more so my 2 younger ones, on a weekly basis, that you can't even touch a pill or anything that you don't really know for sure what it is, let alone take it. You've got to be so super sensitive to this right now that it's coming across the border at such a rate. Ryan, I don't think we've even The media is not covering how many people are losing their lives to it right now, but give it a year, maybe not even that long. I think it's going to be more catastrophic than any illegal drug that's come across the border in terms of tearing our country up from the inside
Fox
out.
talks about it every day.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I don't go to the others enough to know, but I'm assuming the others.
I don't know, but it's on Fox every day. Every day.
Yeah. And I think it should be front and center, period. It really should be that way. So,
but again, I mean, like
so many things.
Fox can talk about it, whatever, but nobody's doing anything about it.
I think
like, you don't even hear.
Think they're talking to the.
And this is the other thing that I think is stupid, like because I will call Republicans out when they're stupid. They're not talking about it. This would be a great
Huge
point for midterm elections, but they're not even talking about it.
It should be one of their main points on everybody's platform.
Yeah.
And you're right. I don't know that I've heard one politician. I'm sure that one has, but I'm not hearing it like you'd expect.
I have not heard it come out of one politician's mouth. Not saying it's not, but I have not seen a clip of it, anything like that. So if they are talking about it, they're not being a very effective communicator.
So in all seriousness, listeners, if you have younger children, just please, and we all assume that our children aren't going to do anything that stupid, but we were all kids once, and I know I did some pretty stupid things.
I was the perfect child.
No, you were terrible.
I was perfect child.
Sit them down and say, hey guys, I know this probably isn't something that we hope is going to affect you, but you can't as much as even touch something like that without endangering your life. So listeners, please even though you think it's not necessary, have that discussion with our Stock Show youth. Please, please, please. If we can do any good whatsoever and save that one child, I mean, we've accomplished more than we ever dreamed we could. So have that discussion about how it's coming across in different shapes and sizes, in different disguised, whether it's an Oxycontin or other types of pills or drugs. It's coming across in so many different manners that you can't assume anything is safe at this point, period. You just can't. And I think we're going to continue to see the impacts of this for a very, very long time.
The only person I've ever heard in the last little bit, like last several years, talk about fentanyl, and more importantly, I don't know if specifically said fentanyl, but he talked about the drugs coming across the border was Trump, and he still talks about it. And when he talks about it, he's racist, by the way.
Yes.
But, and I think the problem increased, right, or started to get even more horrendous, right, during when Rona broke out. And so then Rona kind of took over everything. And I think this will just be one of those things that it's covered after it's too late.
Yes, no, and I'm afraid, Ryan, I really believe right now is already too late.
Yeah.
I think we're there. There's so much of fentanyl in our country right now. It's going to last for years and years and continue to kill youth and others. It's sad. On a different topic, did you hear that Joe did a 60 Minutes interview or an interview on 60 Minutes? Yes. I caught a little.
Good for him.
Well, yeah, no. Every time he speaks, what does he do?
Well, he probably made an ass out of himself.
Yeah, more than the silly ass gaffes that we make fun of. He came out, right or wrong, but I want to make sure that everybody's aware of this. And the interviewer, I don't even know the guy's name, but I've seen him before. So he's talking softballing, and then all of a sudden he comes to Taiwan, and he says, "Just for the record, where do we stand on Taiwan if China decides to try to invade?" And Joe says, "We will put U.S. military forces on the ground to protect Taiwan." He asked the question again just to make sure that there was no confusion.
That old man said that on the TV?
He said it again. So you know what that means. Your little cute little Barbie doll lady, whatever the hell, the one I don't like. I don't know her name.
The press secretary.
Yes. She is going to have to cover the press secretary and the White House staffers on overload this week to cover. I mean, maybe it's a deterrent. I can see somebody like Trump saying that and actually doing that proactively, but he would be putting troops in there so it'll actually work. Right now, they invade. We can't get anybody over there in time to. It just won't work. I wish we could protect them, but unless we started building up things a long time ago, I just don't even think it's possible. Yet he comes out and makes that statement. Just absolutely crazy. He was asked
I
about.
don't think it's wise to be telling people that.
No,
even if
why?
that's what your plan is.
Yeah, it just, and he asked him twice, Ryan, just to make sure. And I saw this on Fox this morning. They just had a clip of that.
There was nothing on Fox this morning other than a casket in London.
You have to. I that was on Fox, but guess what you do? You bump up one on Dish. You bump up from 205 to 206, and you go to Fox Business, and that becomes the.
Oh yeah, okay. Just like I went to Fox this morning. There's nothing but a casket and some people singing in a church.
And I think that old wonderful queen, lovely lady.
She was.
Did a lot of good. But
this is a little much.
Yes, millions of dollars being spent on this, and I'm not told. I don't know enough about it, so I probably shouldn't speak on it. But I'm not totally sold on this whole monarchy thing. I'm just not. I don't like the economics.
I don't think it's gonna matter. I think she was it. Like I don't see it lasting much longer.
King Charles III, is that who he is?
Yes.
Yes. He says he's going to reduce the monarchy, whatever that means. And I think that's I think that's probably a step in the, I think a lesser version of it may be fine. I don't know. If they can go around and do some good in the world, I'm okay with it. But just to be there and to have a lot of money spent on them just to live there, it's very difficult for me.
I get it.
Very, very difficult. So there's a lot of things. Joe hasn't improved mentally whatsoever, and I've got a couple things on China. Can you imagine that?
Imagine that. I'm shocked.
So they had a question. Somebody came out and said that we would be at war with China within the next decade. Okay, I'm not arguing that, but a rebuttal to that was, and I believe this, and I'm not trying to be overly dramatic or anything like that. The rebuttal came back and said, well, in China's mind, we're already at war, and until we declare war, they're taking advantage of everything they possibly can on a non-traditional level, not the conventional war that we're talking about, but from supplying the cartel with the raw ingredients for fentanyl production, the land grab that the Chinese are after here in the U.S., buying up the U.S. debt, buying the food processing plants, taking over production of a lot of the essential items that we need here. That in their mind, they can right now they win. If we were to declare a war outside of a nuclear war, and obviously nobody wins in that, right now they can still strangle us. And it doesn't appear that we're doing anything to change that. Maybe we are, and I just missed it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
No,
I don't think you're doing anything to change it. No,
and I think it would take very drastic measures. I think when Trump was in office, with some of the tariffs that he put in place, and talking about bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. and actually doing it, not just talking about it like you'll see from Crazy Ass Joe. But I think he was on a path, and as extreme as he was, that was still probably borderline, maybe not even enough at that level. So I just don't foresee us being, it's kind of like the fentanyl thing. I'm afraid even if we turn the corner now and try to do everything we can, they still have the upper hand. And that's sad. It's very sad.
I don't know. Like I thought, and this is kind of getting off topic and we're going too long on current events anyway. I really thought like as soon as probably just like a month ago, I was like, you know what? We're going to be all right. They're going to take the House. The Senate will stay close. If not, go to the Republicans, all that. I don't know anymore.
No, I blame it on the ignorance of our voting population. An example I have, and I kind of like statistics that favors my logical way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The debt forgiveness bill, the executive order that Biden signed for debt forgiveness, we don't believe it's legal, and it may never happen because of that. We can hope. But you know what that polls at?
No.
This is evidence that we have mental health issues in our populace at a large level. 70% of the population was in favor of it. How is that possible? I hope that poll was wrong. That was that. I obviously it came through Fox somewhere, but yeah, it was. And maybe it was a skewed poll. Maybe it was the left. I have no idea, but that number popped up. I can't imagine it'd be over 7%. Whoever has a student loan, or maybe their family, might be in favor of it. How could anybody else be in favor of it?
I do not know.
I apologize. I took the topics my direction. Anything you would like?
No, I'm good. We've covered everything. I just don't, there's nothing, literally, until the queen gets put in the ground, I don't think they're going to cover anything else. And then, which is today, but then after that, I don't think they're going to cover anything else either, because there's nothing to cover other than if Trump gets indicted or something that they want to cover. So I don't know. Like, it's all a mess.
I that they were saying something about the ceremony in Washington, D.C. I thought maybe they were going to fly her over for it, but apparently not.
Jesus.
But no, I don't think they are.
Can't they just put her in the ground and be done? I mean, like, she died 2 months ago.
I know. What do you have for BTR JLA news?
Well, I just want to give a huge shout out to Clint Leonard and Leonard Truck and Trailer, because not only before this had he been the largest BTR JLA donor that we had, but he called and asked how many region species were left unsponsored, and I told him 3, and he said that he was going to just cut a check for those final 3.
He is so good.
We love all our sponsors, but Leonard Truck and Trailer, we cannot thank you enough. I don't even know what the amount is that he's at now, and he's also, he did the swag store that's on our website, and we're trying to get new merchandise, and he's just wonderful man that we appreciate a great deal about. And so please, if you are in the buying mood, support Leonard Truck and Trailer, because they are supporting the livestock youth. And so thank you, Clint. We talked about all the rule changes. They've been posted on social media.
Pretty positive response so far.
Yes, I think so. I've had lots of people contact me individually or personally and tell me that they like the new rule changes. You can start signing up for 2023 on October 1st on our website. If you are sanctioned shows for this year, I know most of you have already sent in, but if you're going to sanction your show, we're going to pull the 2022 sanctioning contract on October 1st and put the 2023 one up. But if you don't get to it before October 1, you're going to have to contact me, either email, text, call, whatever, and we can probably still get your show sanctioned after October 1st, but it will not, you won't be able to do it on the website anymore, because we will be taking the 2023 sanctioning forms as well. So get those things in and get those things done. I haven't read a little top 10 in a while, because I don't even know why, but we're going to do top 10.
You are homeless and you don't really have a base, and you're just traveling, and it's a mess.
It is not good, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better.
Well, maybe we could ship you to Martha's Vineyard. They've got
that would
10 homeless slots for beds.
Lovely. So
they might even keep your flamboyant ass there. They might approve of you.
I've been to
figure out your political views.
I've been to Martha's Vineyard before. I wasn't that impressed. I'm just saying.
I've never been there, but what is the draw?
It's just a bunch of old, rich, snobby white people.
And pretty much liberal, for the most part, liberal.
Oh, very liberal, yes.
And Cape Cod is where the
I mean, it is a real pretty area, but
pretty much a summer vacation home, not a good winter.
No,
home.
probably not. But
I think there's a lot of sharks off the coast right now. So I'm in favor of everyone getting in the ocean. Just go for a swim. Go.
That's nice. So top 10 senior cattle. First is Catherine Hesh of Queen Creek, Arizona. Second is Bo Peen of Hastings, Minnesota. I probably mispronounced your name, Bo. Last name, sorry. Third is J.W. Powers of Malta, Idaho. Fourth is Taylor Newlick of Hugoton, Kansas. Fifth is Mason Norris of Casa Grande, Arizona. Sixth is Jaden Simpson of Rochdale, Indiana. Next is Jewel Thompson of Opeka, Alabama. Following that is Alex Lukey of Hortonville, Wisconsin. Followed by Ben Jedrick of Hortonville, Wisconsin. Followed by Evan Meenan of Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's your top 10 senior cattle. Lots of Wisconsins.
There is a lot of Wisconsins in that one.
No Texas. No Oklahoma.
Why?
I don't know.
There's plenty of jackpot shows in the two states.
Oh, they're the most. But so that is my BTR JLA News, do you have any sponsors, your little fresh H2O people?
Do we ever have fresh H2O? They just basically said, we're just going to sponsor you forever. And I appreciate it very, very much.
Did you increase the price?
We have to discuss that. We're probably a little on the economical side. With that, something else I've been contacted several times about, and I haven't discussed this with you yet, but I can right now.
Oh, good.
Of shows and sales wanting just a quick, here's when our show or sale is. And I guess that I don't want to fill it up, but we could put something like that on. Just shoot an email or a Facebook message or something if you have interest in those things. But we've been getting a few of those, and that relates enough to what we're doing.
I'm not turning this into a commercial like the other podcast.
No, we're doing our best to avoid that. But let's get back to the one that is our episode sponsor. Show Fresh H2O continues to sponsor this podcast and gives back to the youth by doing so. I appreciate it's made in the USA. We can pick it up at our local supply trailer, swampfox.com. I challenge all of you listening to try this product at one show. There's minimal cost with a huge upside to it. So you're not out much if you don't think it works, but it almost acts as an insurance policy because every animal is different. Every show's water system or where they get their water, whether it's chlorinated or not, is going to be different. So there's a lot of factors that are a lot of variables that we can't control. But the Show Fresh H2O is that insurance policy is going to ensure that animal continues to drink and that chlorine smell and taste isn't going to interfere with that. So I challenge you, give it a try. I don't think you're going to be out much. I continue to get positive feedback from people that have tried it and had heard it on the podcast. Even if it doesn't work for you, shoot me that. I'll gather all the information be as upfront as I possibly can with it. With that, we appreciate their continued support. Now,
yes, we do.
On to the main topic, which Ryan came up with a long time ago. Brian.
I didn't come up with. I mean, I've talked about it, but I had lots of people request it, so I was like,
and it's going to be a real simple title unless you can come up with something more creative. But I just have down hair growth.
I didn't. I didn't come up with anything else creative. That's it. That's all.
No, it's maybe not real attention grabbing, but no. I promise you, this is going to be good.
I'm done with titles. I screwed up the last one last week.
Did you ever? You want to go ahead and go through the confession here? That would be a good way to word it. Confession.
So, okay, I'm not trying to get all whatever, but I am not a devoutly religious person. I believe in God, but I don't like.
Well, I believe there are some religions that won't allow you in their church.
Yeah, exactly.
Just but I mean, like, blunt about it.
I believe in God and like I pray, but yeah, I'm not a deeply religious person. Like I don't beat down the church door and all this other stuff. But like when we did that question and answer full episode, I just had always heard that quote, "Ask and you shall receive," and so I thought it was a cute little catchy title. I had no idea it was a Bible verse, and all y'all people were going to comment amen on everything,
which is fine. We appreciate the comments, but I don't think I'm afraid
it made Dale and I very uncomfortable because the first words out of my mouth on the podcast is I'm a little drunk and I'm on pain meds. Clearly not religious.
I think it misled our audience a little bit. That's what I was concerned about, but I've had no real complaints about it. But I'm
literally the first words out of my mouth were that. It's like, so the religion went out the window.
I didn't listen to it. I'm hoping that maybe that Clifton edited a little for us, but maybe we should go back and listen.
But yeah, so I'm done with
titles. It had that episode had absolutely zero to do with any religious.
Nothing.
No,
nothing.
No. But I think it was perceived that
like
way.
There was not even a question about anything that could remotely be religious there. But yeah. So I screwed up. So I'm done with titles. I'm done.
You've had a couple really good ones, though. I mean, some of the best ones you came up with.
Oh, I'm
today we're going to play it very, very safe. Hair growth. No. How's that?
There you go. I'm all about it.
So I want to be clear before I dive into this, and Ryan can do what he wants on it. But this is going to be my opinion, as best as I can give it, and I have conducted. I've not done any personal research from a statistical level or a science-based level. I think I have some life experiences, and I've reviewed other research projects about hair growth, none necessarily recently, but over the past years, and I'm going to pull on some of that information to try to give you guidance. Now, with that said, this is my opinion. This is not fact. I'm going to give you what I have. I should have spent a day looking through all this and researching it further. I did not, but I think we've got enough, hopefully enough experience base that there'll be some information here that is useful. How is that for a disclosure statement, right?
Yeah, I don't know anything scientific. I just know what works for us.
Yes,
like
exactly.
That's all. That's just like that's all I've got. And the other thing, like I think, and this again, supplement companies come at me or whatever, but like I think.
Now be careful, don't you be offending too many of them.
I'm not, but I'm just saying. I think that a lot of times, especially like on hair growth, we rely way more on all these tricks and supplements or whatever.
Shortcuts.
Right.
How's that?
When if you would just put some common sense into some things, you'd probably have the same results without all that stuff or better. But that's
so why do we want hair growth? Why?
Well, everybody, I mean, normally you want more hair because it will help you be able to carve your animal into a better looking individual.
And I think you mentioned this before. Right now, it's almost across species when you talk about leg hair or shag or wool.
Yeah, I mean, goats, sheep, the piggies are all furry, and cattle always have been. So yeah, right now, hair is the biggest commodity in the show ring world. And I think that one thing that people forget is, and again, this is going to sound simple, but like I think some people probably need to hear that. In the end, to get your animal to grow more hair, you have to reduce the temperature of that animal's body. Period. Paragraph, the end.
And when you're doing this, why does that grow hair?
Because they're cold.
It's that simple. There is a lot.
I mean, like, I know people but I've told that to somebody before and they looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, no, this is how this works, sir.
Well, I'm with you. I'm going to break it down into several things. And there's one component that I think is absolutely dominating on hair growth. And I'm going to go right at that one just real quick and just be done with it, because it's something that as a buyer, once you have that animal, you cannot control it. And that's genetics. Period.
Yes.
And I think that is the main factor, period. It just is. It is how it is. And you can argue a lot of things. I have, for those that think they can take any animal, this is really a good prospect. If I can grow the hair, I can get there. Well, if they didn't have it as a baby, it's going to be that much more difficult to get to where you want to be later. And here's an example, Ryan. I'm going to, instead of just saying it's genetics and hoping everybody listens, and I think most people are probably on board with that. But think about a yak or a Scottish Highland. Okay, huge hair. Yak's probably got more than a Scottish Highland, but very hairy animals. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
So in their traditional environment, that hair has worked for them for functional purposes, keeping the body warm, sheltering them, all of those things. We can take them out of their traditional environment. And
they still have it.
Yes. Dr. Favero, not far, just 20 miles north of me, used to have a lot of yak. And I'm not saying they had as much hair as they would have up in the Arctic, but I tell you what, they had 6, 12 inch, a lot. How's that? And
well,
all.
I mean, again, like obviously the Highlanders are not from this country or whatever, but you can see all of those at all the shows. They still have just incredible hair coats. So yes. A lot of it, I mean, and again, I've said this on here 900 times before. Everything in life revolves around genetics and environment. So genetics is a big deal. Again, I think sheep and goats and pigs are trying to get there, but like I don't know if they have the knowledge base of which sires, which dams are good for hair growth yet. Like cattle.
I think we're gaining ground.
Yes, I think you're gaining it, but I mean, I think like cattle, there are bulls that have been known. Yeah, all of them are super shaggy. Stuff like that. Right, literally. For decades. Yeah,
before we even had boar goats here.
Right.
No, I agree completely on that, and I'm pretty sure. I hope maybe somebody can prove me wrong, but those out there with the Scottish Highlands, I don't think they're putting many of those in the cooler room.
No, I think they're probably just outside and
that's the case
doing it. But yeah,
even in the middle of the summer in the heat, and I don't know if there's probably not many in Texas, but there are quite a few around here, and every single one of them is shaggy. Period. Doesn't matter what time of the year, they just are. And that is that genetic component. And there's certain genes that are going to regulate hair growth, and we can talk about a little bit more later, but we can't get around that genetic component. We can do things to help, but I think we're talking about making a smaller percentage difference than what the genetics actually control. So we can do things. We can do things that makes that hair look good. We can train it. We can do a lot of things. One of our sponsors, Showcoat, for the BTR JLA, there's no question that product does a nice job of conditioning the hair. It works great to help train the hair and get everything going the right direction before we clip it. I'm not even sure if they claim hair growth or not. And I don't know if there is or not, but I am confident that it's conditioned well. It works great in the training, and a lot of our clients will use it, and that leg hair looks the part. Now, did it actually encourage more hair growth? I don't know, but it certainly did all the other things. So sometimes doing that and getting that hair to pop and look the part, even if we didn't put more hair on them, gives us that illusion. I hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Beyond genetics, the next one I'd like to dive into, and you can jump on it and explain how we're doing it in a practical sense, but photo period or day length.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that, other than reducing body temperature, the thing, and I'm sure there is 900 million scientific information on all of this, but basically, when the days get shorter, they grow more hair.
Yeah, and Mother Nature's taking care of this.
Yes, and I mean, like, that's just how it is. And so, like, and I don't know, again, if this is true or what, but, like, some people seem to think that when you put them in a dark cooler all day, that triggers something to make something think they're whatever. I don't know all that. I think the whole thing on the cooler is it's cold and the animal has to grow more hair, but that's just me.
Okay, so I can, and again, I'm going to state things that I feel very comfortable with. I don't have the data or the research article to back it up, but Ryan is absolutely correct here. When we put them in the cooler, and oftentimes if we're putting them in the cooler, we're going to keep it dark in there for the most part, other than when we're in there. So you're actually checking a couple of the regulating factors. You're putting them in the dark to stimulate a shorter day length, and you're reducing the temperature through thermal regulation, and we're going to reduce that temperature around the pituitary or the brain. There was actually, Ryan, a research article, and I saw this a long time ago when I was in grad school. They were doing some research on Holstein cattle, and one of the articles that drew me to it, they were using bovine somatotropin, I believe, for milk production, and we saw actually some hair growth. So we'll talk about the hormonal component. But they also had a research article that I stumbled on, and I don't know why I even remember it. If we reduce the temperature, I'm sure, especially in the hot summer, we get more milk production. That seems less stress, very obvious to me. But they took it a little bit further. All they had to do is reduce the temperature around the animal's head. The rest of the body didn't seem to matter. As long as their head was cool, they produced more milk, and there was some hair growth stimulation from that. And that is odd. I assume because our brain and pituitary, I think that's obviously where the signals are coming from to alter what's being released and all those things. So no question that the cooler is affecting photoperiod. It's affecting temperature or thermal regulation. So all of those things. There are other things we can do to simulate the reduction in photoperiod. That's very popular right now, called melatonin.
Yes.
And we're human product. We can buy it at Walmart. And I'm not trying to pull away from Grow and Shine or New Grow or any of the melatonin. They're all good, but essentially, to my knowledge, all of the active ingredients probably coming out of the same factory for the most part. So melatonin is kind of melatonin. You just got to figure out the right dosage level. And I have a caution statement with this. We have melatonin implants that came originally through the fox, maybe even the mink fur industry. Ryan, you probably supported this at some point.
I have used them a lot, and
no, not just the implants, but the fur coats.
Oh, yeah, well, that too.
Yes. So tell us about the melatonin implants. What are your thoughts on those?
The thing on the melatonin implants...
Careful, I do not know if they're FDA approved for meat animal consumption.
I don't know if you can get them online, though.
Don't incriminate yourself. You've heard of people using them.
No, I've used them my whole life.
Okay, go ahead.
My whole life, I've used them. But anyway, and they have always worked for us. The only thing that I caution you is the thing that you do it in 2 rounds, or that's what we always did, because it's going to grow, it's going to grow, and it's going to grow. And then you've got a target for whatever show you want them to be hairy for. Because at some point, when it's over, you can give them 3 and 4 rounds and it's not going to matter. Because, or at least in my experience, that hair is going to die and shuck off. And when it does, it goes super fast. Like, whew, like one day you've got super shaggy animal and 3 days later, bald. So,
and I think that is the exact caution I want to give, Ryan. I think you're dead on.
I mean, that's the whole thing, but they do work. We've had great success with it, and it didn't matter if we were targeting a summer show, like because a lot of these cattle are that I was selling were going to be slick at the end, so like we would target for the biggest jackpot show of the summer, and it worked. But then I'm telling you, when it goes, it goes.
And we're not talking like full winter hair, but pretty dang good summer hair,
right? Oh yeah. But
yeah, and he's right. So I'm sometimes a little anal about control freak and making sure everything is exact. So on the implants, my concern is I'm not positive on the release rate nor the duration, and I have nothing against it. And Ryan has stated it's worked very well for him. And I'm going to guess you were playing it very safe and putting an implant in more frequently, maybe than even recommended, just to make sure it's there.
We did 2. Instead of 1, we did 2.
Do you remember how often you would put new ones in?
We spread it out over 30 days.
Okay, because I don't have that info. I just don't know.
Yeah, that's we would do 2 implants, 30 days for like 3 or 4 months. But again, in a row. But I mean, just depend. And again, like you said earlier, the animal genetics, a lot of it, how long they would hold or whatever. But if we were targeting a show, we would start 3 months in advance.
Yeah, no, I think that's fairly common. So I think it's tried and true, even though we don't we know it affects the photo period. We can't go into the exact science of it real deep on a micro level, but there's no question there's benefit there. And Ryan just brought up, there's something that I remember reading a long time ago, and I don't know if this is going to make sense to you, Ryan, or not, because I have the same thought process on the surface that when we get into the shorter day length, we get more hair growth. Well, it appears as though when an animal is a mammal, and again, this was on, I don't remember what animal research was done on, but once they start shucking their hair, that is actually the same time that we're starting the new hair growth, which seems logical. But from the time they shuck it, let's say March, April, May, if we aren't doing anything, just their natural cycle, Ryan, where would you say those steers are going to start shucking it? Or any animal, sometime in the spring.
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 Yeah.
So if they start their hair growth then, maybe it's just an accumulation over the summer that by fall we really bump it up and it's starting to get there. I don't know, but I wanted to bring that out because it's maybe has as much to do with when they're shucking their hair as the shorter day length when the days are getting longer. But either way, we know at the same time that the day photo period is getting shorter is when we're starting to notice significantly increased hair growth. And I think, and we'll go into some human products, I'm not sure that melatonin does a lot necessarily for increasing hair growth. I suspect it does, but I really don't know. But what it appears to do is block the loss of hair. So that hair is going to continue to grow if we don't lose it, depending on where their genetic components and all of that falls. So that's interesting to me how it all comes into play. But I go the melatonin route and give it orally, literally with a drench gun. Even with cattle, if I'm sure they're eating well, I can put on the feed. And the reason I do that, because Ryan, you talked about using 2 implants like every 30 days or spreading them out in 30 days. The problem there is it used to be all the implants came out of the fur industry, and I assume people are actually manufacturing them for show stock now. But I don't have any idea what concentration those implants are at or how fast they're releasing it, what the carrier is, and adjuvant to release that into the system. So I just don't know enough about it just to feel comfortable this is what works. But I think most of them are fairly common, and I think that it is working in that manner. If we give it in a liquid or a pill form orally, we can know exactly how many milligrams they're getting each and every day. And Ryan cautioned you, when they lose it, they lose it. So guess what the downside is of giving it orally? And I can use goats for an example. And as Ryan said, about a 90-day target, 60, 90-day target, that show is when we'd want to start. And we can go into the science more, but that just is what it is. So when we give it every day, I will allow a little bit of photo period to happen in the morning, maybe an hour or so of daylight, and then give it to them, just so there's some cycle there, so it's not completely dark. I don't know if it matters. It makes me feel better. But approximately the same time every morning would be an ideal situation to put that melatonin into the animal. The problem with that, if you're not extremely disciplined on getting that done, or if you're going to go on a vacation for 3 days and it may not get done, guess what happens in those 3 days when it's not given?
Bye-bye hair.
Oh, it's gone. So I think it works great, but you better be very disciplined. And I send out a management protocol with every person that buys one of these goats, and I explain this is my preferred method, but in bold letters, I say you cannot miss a single day. And I don't know if people take that serious or not. I really don't know. And full circle back to genetics, we have a few goats, and I think we've been very blessed with hair genetics in our goats. We'll have a few, Ryan, that without doing
not
anything,
blessed, you planned that. Don't even lie.
Okay, so we have a few that will carry almost a full winter hair coat through the summer, and that is incredible. We have others that will definitely shuck it, depending on the exact genetic base, but there are some of them, kind of like those Scottish Highland or Yak, that just keep it all the way through the summer, and it really, we don't have to use nothing on them whatsoever, and it just works. So that kind of covers most of our photo period, and basically tricking Mother Nature is what we're trying to do to prepare for winter. They're going to put on hair growth, and some will say that by using melatonin, and I think if we overdo it where it's 24 hours of darkness, I don't know. And I don't know about the dark cooler room affecting intake, but in theory, as they're preparing for winter, what else would they do? Bump intake and try to put on a little more weight or body condition for insulation as well. So there could be some other advantages to it as well. Temperature, where would you put a cooler temperature?
I think it depends on where you're at. What you cannot. Okay, the biggest problem with people in Texas, at least. Again, I don't know about you Yankees and your coolers and whatever, but like, biggest problem with people in Texas is they want to set this cooler at 40, 45 degrees, and then when they go to turn their steer out, even when it's dark, it's 90. They're not going to eat. They're not going to do well. Like, it's just like, I mean, so.
Terrible idea. Terrible.
Right. I mean, it's like, it just doesn't work. And so, like, I think it depends upon, what your setup is, what the actual temperature, what time of year it is, all of those things. But obviously, you want to keep it as cold as you can. But when they go out and I don't care if it's whatever, when they have to go outside because they can't live in the cool room 24/7 and eat, it's not such a shock to them that they don't want to eat. They don't want to do any of the things that they have to do to still be a normal functioning animal.
Agreed completely. And I think we can take it a step further. What about when you've got to pull them out and go to a damn show?
That too. I mean, that's the whole, that's the thing. And so it all depends on, obviously, the temperature in June in Kayberry, Illinois is normally going to be much lower than Crockett, America. I mean, like, agreed. So I think you just have to have some common sense about it, but you do want to keep it as, if you have a cooler, you want to keep it as cold as you can, but that animal still is able to function when it goes outside.
Yes, and that's going to vary from animal and where you're at regionally, geographically, I should say. So all of those are variable.
There is no number. Like, you can't say, set your cooler at 52 degrees. No, you can't do that.
I think people would like a number.
Yes, well, I know, but that's bullshit. It's because it would be a lie.
So I would recommend let's keep that gap between the true outside temperature and your cooler temperature, maybe float up and down and keep that as minimal as we can. And I don't know what that number, that gap is to still promote that hair growth. And I think I'm sure in Texas that they would do it, or you did as well. But it's interesting in the North with all the summer state fairs, those calves about March, April, those guys will oftentimes get them in the cooler room and they won't go out again until State Fair because of some of the same issues that we see when we stop melatonin after they've been on it for a while. Boom. So when we come out of the cooler to go to a jackpot, even for a day or two, sometimes that show in mid-July, and our State Fairs in August, you've just taken that calf out of there and they're exposed to these temperatures. It may hold the hair, and it, depending on the animal, it may drop it, and you've just thrown away those months of work. So a lot of them, unfortunately, these kids will show a little bit early in the winter, and then they shut them up through the whole spring until State Fair. They're not getting a lot of show miles out of them because they want to keep that as much of that hair as they can for State Fair. And then about 2 weeks before State Fair, that we start bumping that temperature up slowly, so it's not as big a transition. Because you were so kind to Illinois State Fair last week about the toxicity in the environment.
Hey, and let me tell you something. I had 7 people from Illinois contact me and tell me I was right. So screw all of y'all.
Okay, the junior barn at the Illinois State Fair is kind of like a dungeon, and it can get stuffy. It can get hot. And those cattle, even if you've adjusted them,
you can also drown.
Yeah, you can also drown. We lost a couple vehicles drowning one year there. So they get down there and they get pretty hot. We've got to do something. We've got to acclimate those cattle before we get there, because we come straight out of the cooler room into almost any summer State Fair. They're going to go downhill on you no matter what you do. And it's just a challenge. Very, very much a challenge. You can't keep them cool enough with fans, or heck, in Illinois, we're very limited on what we can even use for fans and so forth. I don't believe in any evaporative coolers, and it's a challenge. So we've got to implement. Ryan talked about in the very beginning. We've got to put some common sense into this whole plan. And also, as Ryan, I want to restate, he said there is no absolute temperature. You've got to figure out how you're going to adjust that to your environment, your turnout time, all those things. We get to the point, Ryan, and I'm sure you've probably done it as well. And I'm curious. We'll have some that won't turn out until midnight, and they're back in at 2, 3, 4 in the morning.
Oh yeah, I mean, and again, when we say we do this, we're doing this limited times at a show's target, probably towards the end to keep whatever. We're not keeping this animal only outside 3 hours a day the entire feeding period. So like, don't get all crazy, people, when you hear that, okay? Like, go, oh, well, they said that I need to turn mine out at midnight and bring it back in at 2. No, not the whole time, but like, you do different things to get the desired results, and a lot of it's trial and error, because again, what works at Dale's house and his environment and his temperature, what works at mine, is probably going to be different than yours. But I think cool rooms are, and even for, I don't care if you're doing pigs or sheep or goats or whatever, if you are in a climate-controlled environment, then that is going to be more advantageous to hair growth than not. Like, that's just simple. Like, common sense.
Absolutely.
But not everybody can have a climate-controlled environment. And I understand that. And so I got asked a lot, if you can't afford a cool room, how do you grow, what do you do to grow hair? And this is going to sound dumb, and Dale, there is no science behind this, but I'm telling you, we still did this when we had cattle in the cooler. And we would get huge feed, what you put, you know, the big tall white buckets that everybody uses to feed. I don't even know what they're called, but anyway, we would pack those full of ice, put water in it, let it get cold, and then we would take a rice root brush and brush our cattle twice a day. And okay. I'm telling, and we would do that whether they were outside or in the cooler, and it worked. Because, I mean, and it does. And again, I think that's just lowering the body temperature. And it's also working hair with rice root brush, so that helps too. But
I think there's logic to it. Your rice brush and that cold water, you're bringing that core body temperature down. Obviously that helps. And guess what? I mean, that stiff rice brush is a positive as well, because we're doing
stimulation.
We're opening up some blood flow into those areas, and anytime we can bring more blood flow, more oxygen, it's providing as healthy of an environment. I'm not saying it's a game changer, but we're giving that hair every opportunity to grow at its maximum level. If that's the logic that I can come up with, and I may be just wrong. I don't know, but
again, there's no science behind what I'm telling you, but I'm telling you, I said at the beginning,
I think there is.
I'm going to tell you what has worked for me over the years, and that is something that definitely worked for us over the years.
And how many people historically, if you talk to the oldest cattle fitters, everybody that's had success growing hair, they're all going to go back to the rice brush. Always.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I don't know that we're using it as much now as we did it one day.
I don't think people know what a rice fruit brush is anymore. I'm just going to be real honest. Like I think the large, you can. I'm telling you, like I'm. You know how observant I am and weird, and we all know that I'm real weird. But like when I am walking through the barn, leaving a show or whatever, like. I'm looking at different show boxes and stuff like that just to see, and I just don't see them. You don't see people standing at the ring with them anymore or whatever. So, I mean, I'm not saying people don't use them, but I think it's been greatly reduced.
And I still think there's benefit there. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And there is science behind it. Stimulation of that dermal layer and reducing the core temperature if you're dipping it in the cold water or something. So it's there. It's happening. I think it's real. So those are good.
And then the other common sense saying, and then see, Dale's going to argue on this because he doesn't believe in washing his animals. I don't know why, but anyway, you have to keep your animals clean if you want to keep hair or grow hair. And again, I know Dale and I are going to argue a little bit on things, but like he still washes the legs on his goats. Okay, he may not like wash the bodies, but you have to keep the animals clean, and especially on leg hair, because like that's what everybody seems universally. Sheep and goats want leg hair, pigs want leg hair now, whatever, all that stuff. And I think that's saying you've got to keep if you've got a place that it's been raining and it's muddy, it's all those things, mud, dirt, sticker burrs, whatever, that is going to rip hair out. So you have to do all the things possible to prevent, not only to try to get it to grow, but also to prevent hair loss, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And I think the goat's skin and hair, the oils in the skin and hair, it's easier to diminish those. In other words, when I watch people, and I don't mean to offend people, but it's okay. When I watch people washing cattle on a regular basis with Dawn, which is basically a degreaser.
Oh, terrible idea.
Oh,
terrible.
I know it. If they're covered with mud and just came in out of the feedlot or something, maybe one time, maybe. But that is crazy for me. Why do we want to pull all those oils out? So if we've sold does and people that have given immaculate care, washing every third day with a shampoo product, those are the worst hair coats we got because we pulled all the oil and hair out. So I'm not saying don't wash with a mild human shampoo once or twice a week, or at least the legs. I probably wouldn't do the body at all. We have the best hair on ours, keeping them in a clean pen. And obviously we have genetics that are working to our side, some show coat and blowing that hair out and working the body hair, but not stripping of the oils. I think the cattle are a little better about holding some of that oil in the hair and skin, that we can get away with washing them a little more. All for conditioning or rinsing, especially conditioning as much as we can on the legs and goats and the entire calf. So Ryan and I are closer than maybe what I've let on in the past. But I think that washing, what about just breaking that hair loose and getting those hair follicles to separate and give more volume? I think huge, absolutely huge.
No. And I will tell you what we did. Like, depends if it was raining or muddy or all these things, but we would rinse every other day and then wash, but not with Joy or Dawn or, all that. Like, you got to use some common sense things. We would probably wash 2 times because we're always at a show every weekend. So I'm saying like Monday through Friday, we would probably rinse 3 days and wash twice. But I get that in terms of goats and sheep and other stuff that every animal and species is different. But Dale brings up a very valid point that the more times that you condition or work the hair and do those things, that's going to help too. But you cannot soap an animal every single day. I'm just going to put that out there. You should not. Idea. You shouldn't. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that. Like I said, we rinsed more than washed.
I think great advice. Nutrition. There is a nutritional component in my mind, no question. If we look at our goats that we're selling or look at our older does, we can look at their horns, and you can almost tell when they had a difficult time, stress in their life, whether it be banding or they were sick for a little while or had a high parasite load. We can almost see the evidence in the horn on how that horn growth was or the health of that horn at that time, kind of like a tree ring.
Really?
You can actually see it, no question. And
wow,
you can see the same thing in a hair if you put it under the microscope. You can see when there were stressful times.
You have like a laboratory at your barn, don't you?
No, I think about these things a lot.
He has people still don't believe this. I've never been to Dale's house. I know y'all don't believe me, but I haven't. But I'm telling you, I think underground he has some kind of Frankenstein laboratory that I don't know about.
Nothing like that. But nutrition is going to play a role, and I'm gonna go back to my old days of teaching in a basic nutrition class. We have 6 basic nutrients. Show Fresh H2 will take care of the water part. Carbohydrates, protein, minerals, vitamins, and fats would be, I think there's 6 there. We have to make sure all of those requirements are met. If we're lacking in any of those, and there is a way we can lack, or we're out of balance, our ratios, calcium phosphorus ratio, any of our ratios are too far out of whack, that will inhibit hair growth. So I'm not saying there's one nutrient that's going to increase hair growth, but if we're deficient in anything, that will impact hair growth in a negative way. So make sure we've got a balanced ration. The most common way that we get screwed up in this, luckily it's in the Fugit pig projects, not as much in the other animals, but it's adding too much supplement and getting ratios out of balance. It's very seldom maybe we're not getting enough of something, but we get so much of one, it's masking the relevance of another nutrient. So we have to have a balanced ration. In most of our show feeds, we have PhDs behind them. They're balancing them. They're meeting the animal needs. I think we're fine. I am a huge fan of vitamins in livestock. Okay. Partially because it's safe. If we try to overdose an animal on 99% of the vitamins, the excess is going to be excreted through the urine. Simple, gone. It's a waste of money maybe, but we're not harming the animal. And if we go back and look at our vitamin requirements, this research was done in the 1950s, 1960s on most livestock. And I think we know what the minimums are for minimal, or for what we consider to be normal growth rate and normal function. But what we don't know is what are all the positives that come from vitamins if we go to higher levels. And for the most part, we're not going to have any issues because we can excrete it from the body so easily that we can take those vitamin levels up there pretty high. And there's some show stock people out there that go to crazy levels. I don't think that we need to do that, but higher probably than recommended. And there really is no downside. And research is going to indicate that if we have a lack of vitamin D in the animal's body or human's body, you're going to experience hair loss. No question. Plays a role in stimulating new and old hair follicles. If there's not enough in your system, it's a problem. If I'm correct, and again, I'm pulling from very long ago, vitamin D, we need some sunlight exposure to help synthesize and absorb it into our body. And a lot of times we're in the cooler room or we're inside a barn, even if we have windows, a lot of times that's blocking the UV rays. So we're almost in a situation where we want dark, we want them in the cooler room, we want all these things, but we still have to get enough vitamin D absorbed into the system that we don't have an issue with that. So I don't have an answer for it. I just want to make sure that people are aware of it. I don't know if we feed extra levels of vitamin D without the UV sunlight or the sunlight, how well absorbed that is. I'm unsure of that, but I would make sure I would take my vitamin levels and just to make me feel better, bump them up just a little bit across the board for the most part. And I think you're kind of an insurance policy is the way I look at it, and make sure all those other basic nutrients are absolutely met. Ryan, did you do anything feed-wise or feed supplements to try to increase hair outside of your melatonin? I guess it wasn't feed you.
No, we implanted, but like a lot of my families use Show Coat, and they were very happy with it. when show coat came out, I had nothing personally in my barn anymore, but a lot of my families use show coat, were very happy with it, but we didn't feed many other. We fed very few supplements, but the ones that we did were kind of vitamin mineral supplements for just the reason that you're saying. And so, yeah, but I'm kind of like you on all the magic potions, lotions, creams, whatever. I'm not a big believer in a lot of them.
That is, and you and I have discussed this, but isn't it interesting that we've both come together on this podcast and our friendship, and a lot of for various reasons, a lot of the same, we argue obviously, but on things like this, there's more similarities than not. And that's coming from two totally different backgrounds. Yours probably more just experience and the fitters you've had through and making recommendations, right. Where mine is trying to bring in the science side of it, but we end up at the same conclusion. While we're on the nutrients, there are some mineral supplements out there. I believe it's primary mineral, and I don't know enough about these to speak very deep, but there are some mineral supplements out there that I believe have some validity. And the reason I say that is they're being used commercially in some cattle feedlots that will drop the core body temperature a degree or two. And in the extreme heat stress of summer, that degree or two is going to help stimulate appetite and keep growth in those cattle. I think Purina has. I shouldn't even go into what it is because I don't have enough knowledge, but it appears to be out there. There's solid research, solid data behind it. So I think from a nutritional standpoint, you would need to do your own research on that and look into it. And I think it's going to help a little bit. There's another thing that we haven't talked about that I don't think people. I think one of these two that we do talk about when we have a high, let's say a steer, Ryan, that we're trying to put some fat on, because you know what we want with fat. Besides making them look smooth, we want that cover. We want that marbling, carcass quality, right? Carcass, all about carcass quality,
right?
A high density of corn in the ration or high energy feed. I'm just going to categorize it as high energy. What does that do to our core body temperature?
Raises it.
Yeah. So sometimes people say you feed corn, you lose hair. I don't know to what degree, and I think every animal is individually different. But there's no question if there's some relevance to it, it's because we're probably raising the body temperature via fermentation, I assume. And there's also, we have a lot of fescue in this part of the country. I don't know what you have in Texas.
We do not.
we have fescue endophyte, and this endophyte will also cause an increase in core body temperature. So we've got to be careful. I know we're not turning, maybe at night we're turning them out onto a fescue pasture or something like that. These are some of the details that you're thinking, man, I worked as hard as anybody every year in hair, and I just can't get there. Go deep into things and see, are we out on a fescue pasture that maybe has some endophyte problems? I know there's a fescue hybrid out there now that seems to not have any endophyte issues, but we've got to look at all those. Maybe we're feeding a fescue-based hay. I don't know, but don't miss anything. If you're having difficulties, just like in growing hair, or say you have a flush program, you're having difficulties with fertility, you're going to dig in as deep as you possibly can and make sure there is no room for error. To a crazy level is where I take it. You probably don't need to go that far, but there's so many variables that come into hair growth. You just have to make sure you're not missing one of those. And I think we're trying to cover as many as we can today. We're probably going to miss some. There is something, Ryan, that you can help me with here. I hear a lot of people talk about it. I did not spend enough time to try to pull it up, but I did this years ago. We talk about the hair cycle, and it's pretty much a consensus that in our show animals, we seem to think there's a 90 to 120 day hair cycle. And I've talked about it with people, and I shouldn't, because I don't know the science behind it or anything like that. But when I try to research this hair cycle, I'm not finding it. I'm not seeing it. The hair cycle to me, okay, Ryan, if you can take Texas, anywhere in the continental U.S., when would you say animals normally start shucking their hair? If we're not doing it just by nature, not doing anything with them, just in normal conditions.
When the temperatures rise in the spring and summer. That's just, and the days are getting longer and all of those things.
Yes. So then when do we notice that they're coming back into pretty heavy hair?
Fall, when the days are getting shorter and the temperatures are getting colder.
Yes, and let's say
now no, there's global warming according to Biden, so there's nothing. But anyway,
bullshit. And John Kerry, I believe.
Yes,
who takes his
Mr.
private jet everywhere.
Everywhere, yep.
To prevent global warming. We better get back on topic. So if we say October, we're coming back into some hair, pretty safe. Yep. They're at least not dropping it usually at that point. And I'd say we can get into March without too much trouble on losing hair in most of the country. So we've got October, November, December, January, February, March. We've got 7 months. Okay. So we're basically at 210 days. So maybe I don't know where we're getting this 90 to 100 day hair cycle, because I can tell you most animals, once they start putting hair on in the fall, you don't have to do very much with that. And they're pretty much going to continue to hold that hair until spring. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So what is the hair cycle? How does this come into play? This 90 to 100?
Again, I'm not real. Not only have I not seen any science to whatever that, but I've never subscribed to that theory. Like,
but
I know
when you say that theory is pretty strong out there?
Yes. I think it's very strong. But again, and I've never really subscribed to it, but yeah, they think that there's a 90 to 120 day where it is what it is. And the only 90 to 120 day cycle that I have ever witnessed is when we did use melatonin implants. Like, at some point they're going to shock. And so that's kind of like your window right there. You know, that's as far as it can go. But you're also you're using a product, a implant, to alter things. So I don't know about all that, but I think that's a very popular theory that I've never seen anything in black and white about it, nor have I really prescribed to it, because I agree with you. Like, if you're just doing nothing, like, other than, sticking them in front of a fan and washing them every once in a while, I don't care what the genetics are. When it gets hotter, they're going to lose hair. When it gets colder, they're going to get more hair. And it starts just like you said, October, and can pretty much, you can take OYE at, that those steers still have hair, and they're, middle of March. So again, I don't know what all that's about, but
no. And I think, like you, Ryan, I think and when I've talked to people about putting them on melatonin for 60 plus days, 90 days before their targeted show, I related that a little bit to the hair cycle, not thinking real deep into it, just because it's commonly talked about. That we're basically preventing that hair cycle from happening, postponing it. And I can almost subscribe to it, but I hope there's a listener out there that can educate us better. And maybe there's an absolute scientific basis for it. I just am unaware of it. But I would love to know. I would love anybody that has true, not just that you heard it, but true information. I'm sure there's plenty of listeners out there that understand it far better than I do on that 90 to 120 day hair cycle. We can definitely artificially induce a hair shucking midwinter by having a melatonin and dropping off or whatever it may be. Or in the southern part, even just taking them out of the cooler from a real cold to warmer, even in the winter months. So we can artificially induce hair loss between fall and spring. But if we're just letting Mother Nature take care of it, I just don't think we're losing a lot of hair at that time, or at least we have more hair growth than loss, where we have a net positive there. So I don't get it. And I go back to the same thing. Hair growth starts when we start shedding hair. We just maybe aren't to the level or where we need to. And I've always been confused, Ryan, and this is common. A lot of people will slick them off in the spring versus letting them shuck their own. I really don't know, but I think when you slick them off, you're not losing, the hair follicle's not coming out at the root. We're shortening the hair and getting some of the old dead hair off, but the root is still there. That has to fall out. I
have never, and again, this is Texas. It's me growing up in Texas. We have never down clipped ours, slicked ours, all those things to promote hair growth at all. Like, if it falls out, and when the animal starts to shuck their hair, that's when we get the rice root brushes and the curry combs and whatever to help it get it out. But yeah, and I know there's 900 breeding cattle people on here that's going to listen to this, and they're just going to think that I am insane, but we never did that. I've never done it.
I'm going to subscribe to you, the rice brush. I'm going to subscribe to you to let Mother Nature take the whole hair follicle out, I guess you could say, versus shortening. But you're right. There's a lot of people that subscribe.
And then the other people, and go one step further. Again, I'm not knocking. If it works for you, it works for you. Whoever, all those people that like, when they decide to like slick their animals based on some farmer's almanac day or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot.
We need a whole episode on that because
that's a whole lot for me. I don't even own a farmer's almanac. I'm just telling you.
Rating by the moon.
Yeah, whatever. All of it. All of it.
But it's been around and people have used it for so long. I'm with you. I want to see a scientific basis for it. I maybe there is one. I'm unaware of it, but there has to be something as many people that subscribe to it, doesn't there?
Again, if it works for them and they believe it, then get with it.
Maybe it's a placebo effect. Maybe. I don't know.
No.
So but we need that's a great episode topic. I'm all in on that one.
The Farmer's Almanac. Oh, God.
Just in Weaning by the Moon, we're going to bring somebody in that knows a little more about it than you or I to make it educational.
Yeah, because I'm not a believer. Like, yeah, you can find a voodoo priestess and bring her on and whatever. But yeah,
so I'm going to use an example. We had one heifer calf here that we just weaned recently, and we took our calf. We didn't have somewhere available because we're getting into flush season.
And I'm not trying to get off topic, but like some people like only wean on certain days based on some of this bullshit folklore, whatever. Yes. Okay, yeah.
And that's what I'm getting to. So Craig I said, we need to get her weaned. He agreed. So he just weaned her, took her over to his dad's place. And he's got some other calves that he weaned at not the same time, but he had weaned. So he just put her in with them. It works out convenient, good. I had a conversation with his father, just how the calves are looking. And the first thing he tells me?
You weaned it on the wrong day?
He says, my son, he weaned that on a full moon. And I'm thinking, there's probably that probably didn't set well with his father, but I just don't. I didn't know if you should wean on a full moon or no. I don't even know what you're supposed to do.
I don't either.
But I'm telling you, there's people that I consider very intelligent that subscribe to
and they believe it.
Yes. Kind of like that genetic immunity thing we talked about.
I mean, they believe it. So again, if it works for you, get with it. I'm out.
I am with you completely. I've got something else that I want to bring.
I'm going to wean my calves when I think they need to come off the cow. And I'm going to, if the witch is up in the full moon, it is what it is.
It just is. It is. So I've got something that I want to talk about, and hopefully I know we're going long, but I think we have to bring this in.
Yeah, which you also told me this topic would not be long enough. But
yeah, no, I thought, remember I stated genetics, photo period, temperature, nutrition. We're done. That took 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That was my thought. So I was wrong. Okay. How's that? I was wrong.
I love it.
That makes you feel better.
It does.
Okay. I'm glad I made your day. So I don't subscribe to a lot of supplements, as you talked about, but we obviously, if we relate it to human hair loss, and I could be a perfect example of that. I have plenty of human hair loss going on with no products being used, but minoxidil, I believe, is the active ingredient like in Rogaine, which was popular years ago. I don't know if it still is or not, but I remember there used to be a lot of commercials on it. But basically what it's doing is the active ingredient, minoxidil, will stop hair loss, consequently promoting hair growth, as it's what would they call a vasodilator, to increase continuous blood flow at the scalp. And the reason I bring this up, Brian, the vasodilator or that stimulation of blood flow there, guess what that rice brush is probably doing?
Same thing.
Same thing. I believe that. And there is the science behind the rice brush right there. There's no question that minoxidil is doing exactly that in terms of cutaneous or increasing cutaneous or dermal blood flow or just under the skin blood flow. We're bringing more blood to that hair follicle, which makes for nutrients for a healthier hair follicle, essentially. And that's going to give it every chance to do well and not fall out. Stress. And I didn't say I'm bouncing around. Stress on an animal will sometimes cause them, if it's severe stress, to maybe shuck hair, or we talked about how you can see it in the horn and the hair follicle. If it's bad enough, it's going to break off. The fleece, I just learned this working with some kids for Skillathon, and somebody far more intelligent about wool judging than me came to help out. And they had us grab a strand of wool and pull on it pretty tight. And if they had a very stressful event during the growing period of that fleece, it's going to have a very clean break right there. So we have to, I felt very obligated. We have to bring stress in that can cause some issues as well. So let's go back to the rice brush and the stimulation of blood flow around there. I think that's happening. There's something else. Have you ever, and Ryan, you probably know about this and you aren't relating it. You ever heard of the product Latisse for eyelashes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you use it?
No, I do not. Okay. My mother does, but I don't.
And what does she say about it?
She thinks it works.
Okay, my wife uses it and my daughter uses it, and I am absolutely 100% against it.
I don't think it works. But
you know why?
I tried it and I don't think it works. So
okay, so I'm watching them using this product, and I'm going to tell you, and this is not a statistically significant group with only 2 people that I'm observing. Crazy long eyelashes when they're using it, and when they stop, it's kind of like melatonin. The damn things fall out. There is no question. I witnessed that. Period. And I think your mom would probably go with it. You did not, and I get it.
I just
maybe
didn't. I mean, the only reason that I used it is because like I get eyelash extensions, and so when they come out, they're attached to your real eyelashes, so you lose some, and so my little eyelash extension lady's like, you should use Latisse because it helps whatever and all that. I tried it for a couple months and I didn't see any difference because it's not cheap.
No, that is why I'm avidly opposed to it. I think the long eyelashes look great, but I believe I asked my wife before I got in here, and I have avoided this before. How much is that little bitty tube? She tells me like $150.
Uh-huh.
No, we're not buying any more of that product. No. But there is no doubt, and I believe, and I didn't research it enough, it's a prostaglandin is what it is, and hormones are going to affect hair growth, and they will also postpone losing hair. So I'm not sure on Latisse, Ryan. I'm assuming the eyelashes continue to grow until they fall out. So with that said, if we can prevent them or stop them from falling out, they're going to continue to get longer. That seems very logical to me, and I think maybe that's the direction that I'm not sure how prostaglandins exactly work, but they're gonna play an important role in that hair follicle function. So it's clinically proven that this Latisse does work. I wish I could tell you the exact way of how it's doing it, but I think it's blocking them from falling out, so constantly it keeps growing. But when you stop using it, just like melatonin, boom, they're dropping out like flies. So obviously very expensive, but I think we could synthesize different forms of prostaglandin and put that into a cattle or a goat or a show stock supplement. That if you had the money for this, I don't know how much it costs to do a whole animal's body when it's $150 for some eyelashes, unbelievable amounts. But I do believe it would work if you could do it consistently, if we could develop that product. The other thing is, we know what blocks hair growth. Do you know what hormone blocks hair growth? Think about balding men. What are they bumping
testosterone.
Up? Yes. Testosterone levels will definitely cause some issues that affect follicular growth. So it's basically DHT interferes with the hair growth cycle. And I don't, again, understand how that is, but no question there's some issues there. There's one more thing that we can talk about, that all of a sudden in women, you will see those just hair growth that goes in spurts. They can directly correlate to an imbalance of what we call male hormones, basically testosterone. So there's no question testosterone's playing a role, good and or bad. And I don't understand enough, but we need to add hormonal influence on hair growth, even though we're not using it as much in livestock right now. Down the road, as we understand it better, we're probably going to incorporate some more of those things into there. So it's interesting to me. I think there's some room for something like that, because there's enough clinical trials on this Latisse, which is basically, again, that prostaglandin, that it does have a significant statistical increase in eyelash growth. Put it on top of your head or where, I don't know, but eyelashes, absolutely. Ryan, we've gone way long, and that's my fault. I was on a rant in the current events, and I had a lot more to say about hair growth than I thought I would ever have to say. And you know the best thing about this hair growth, if we can encourage it? What
is that?
We no longer have to have those fake flanks. We no longer have these monster fake tail heads. And what about the plaster Paris goat legs?
Oh, let's not.
That is my biggest pet peeve. But we can avoid all of those things if we work a little bit on our hair growth.
Agreed.
Do you have anything else? I know we forgot a lot. I hope our listeners help us out on some of these things, like the hair cycle and some of that. Facebook message would be probably the best way to get some of that information to us. If you have our number, text, call, whatever we can do. I'm in on this. Absolutely in on it. There was one last thing I was going to throw in there. I kind of forgot. There was some research done on cashmere goats, or cashmere production. I shouldn't say cashmere goats. Cashmere growth, the actual hair growth. And because cashmere is so valuable, they were doing everything they could, like a fox or mink, to increase this. And they did some work. And this is the only thing on the photo period that one of the things I saw was scientifically documented, that the no question photo period had an effect on it. And what it's doing. And the reason I bring this up, so it's not just that there has to be a biochemical change. So when the photo period, Mother Nature is going into its job, and when the photo period of the day length shortens, we're actually getting genes that are being gene expression is changing. So we're actually changing it at the molecular level, and when gene expression changes, all of a sudden that stimulates hair growth, or the opposite, causes that hair to drop out. So long term, guess what? When we identify the hair genes and how to manipulate specifically, and we're doing that a little bit with our prostaglandins, it's going back to the hormonal influence. As we understand that more, we can manipulate that more and more, where at some point we can induce those genes to express themselves in a manner that's going to encourage hair growth. Did I totally confuse you, or does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
So I think that's the next level. So we're straying away from our rice brush and our cooler. We, in theory, could do all of this through gene expression if we can find the best way to manipulate it. So I think that's where I'm going to end that. But you know what we do have left?
Question and answer.
Yes, we only have 3 compared to last week.
Oh, good.
Okay, the first one comes to us from Robert. Guys, love the podcast. Have you ever thought about doing an instructional videos on selecting the right market animal project? I think it'd be a great idea, an instant hit.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Answer the question. That's not a full answer.
You
would be so good at this. So good.
I would not. I would be terrible. I would be terrible.
Raise money for the BTR JLA. It'd be great.
Yeah. And again, when my schedule am I going to do this? But
and where'd you do it? You really don't have a home.
I don't have a home. I don't have reality TV shows, so I have nobody to film this for me. And then the other thing is, I'm not saying that this cannot be done or cannot whatever, and maybe it's something we look into. But again, I don't think I get an instructional video, but I think it would turn into, or it would, for it to really serve a purpose, it would probably need to be more about like analyzing animals for certain traits and stuff like that. Because what I find, this is just like I repeat almost every show I go to, just because my priorities and what I love and what I dislike in animals are the way it are, that doesn't mean the next judge or Dale or everybody's going to share the same ones with me. So while there's some basics that you probably could cover in an instructional video, I think it would be more beneficial to be like how to analyze, how to read things and stuff like that. And then that goes just way deep. My head hurts now.
That was a perfect question then.
My head hurts now.
Robert, my answer is great idea. Probably would have some value if anybody out there would do some more of these. I'm sure there's some out there, but it is a battle just to come up with this hour a week between Ryan and I's schedule and Clifton's to get this done. And I know that sounds crazy, but it is what it is. So
we haven't even had a Beyond the Ring, Beyond the Circus in like 900 years, and we're less than 60 days away from midterms. Okay. So that tells you how hard it is. It is time. That tells you how hard it is to get this to work everywhere. Yeah. My head hurts. Let's move to the next question.
Can I make the announcement about how you may consider coming on and doing one kind of bonus podcast with Chase and I, Beyond the Realm? About UFOs and gravity and black holes.
My head really hurts now.
I told Chase we were going to record that last weekend. You know how well that went?
I'm sure it went over really well.
No, we never got together to get it done. But there's a lot of interesting things that I would really like. You know what intrigues me? Here, I'm going to give you just an example of what I'd like to put on there. Maybe it'll bring you in. Killer whales, orcas, in the wild, I don't believe there's any documented case that they've attacked humans, and they could go out when people are kayak. There's been plenty of opportunity. Yet in captivity, we've had a few humans killed by an orca or killer whale. Explain why they wouldn't.
What does that have to do with aliens?
Nothing. I'm just saying it's not even going to be just all about aliens. Just intriguing animal science thoughts.
Okay, that's way more interesting to me than aliens.
I mean, we could even put some shark stuff in there. You'd be good. But the killer whale.
Well, like right now, yes, I am aware that there is no, like, in the wild, they don't attack humans, but like the trainers have been attacked. But I can some
probably sons of bitches to the killer whale.
They're pissed off. Yeah, that's why
it's real simple.
Exactly. I mean, it's not hard to figure out, but I do, and that's what makes me mad about, like, and we are getting so off topic on this question, but anyway, what makes me mad is there's been all these increased shark attacks this summer, and I know we're in the fall, but there was like
great topic for it.
There was a lot of them, but nobody's done any research on why. Like,
no, the little bit that I see is they're just saying that increased shark numbers, generally speaking, but I'm just not buying. I don't know, but there is no question. There's statistical difference right now that we're having more shark human encounters. And, you know, if we truly had a radar or something out there when we're swimming in the ocean or on these beaches and knew how close sharks were to us, nobody get their ass in the water. If we've been in the ocean very often, we've had a close encounter with a shark. We just didn't know it.
I don't go to that Oceana, whatever Facebook thing. You will lose your shit. I'm just telling you.
See what now are you, if we change it from just aliens just to,
yeah, I mean, if it's not just aliens, I can sleep during the alien part.
So listeners out there, if you'd like to hear something done on that, I think we get a very small portion of our listeners to listen to it, but I kind of enjoy doing it anyway. Even if we had 2 people listening, that's okay.
There you go.
I'm okay with that. Okay. Second question. We got way off track and Clifton's going to charge us overtime. Comes to us from Todd. And this fits into something we talked about in current events, not livestock oriented. I was just listening to your last podcast about illegal aliens getting hotel rooms. I have a gentleman that I work with in New York, and he told me the hotels are costing $500 per night. I saw something, I think, Ryan, that was like $700. They're putting them in high-end hotels. No idea why. Just because that's the way government functions. Ridiculous. Per night of our tax dollars. Also, he has firsthand knowledge that they sign up for government assistance, and we kind of address this. I don't know how they get it to them. They will write a check for $6,000 per child to an illegal alien. A lady they know receives $18,000. Your thoughts? And before you answer this, Ryan, when you see those people coming off the buses, they look the furthest from homeless. They look like you in their homeless state. Clean clothes, decent clothes.
Okay, well, yeah, they have clothes and all this other stuff. But the other thing that, like, and again, this is not really, I don't even know if there was a question or he was just making an observation, but like, when you see these people get off at Martha's Vineyard or Camel Toe Harris's yard and all this other shit, yes. I don't see families. I see males.
Occasionally a woman and a child, but for the most part, yeah.
I mean,
and this is total bullshit. They're talking about kids. They're signing a consent that they want to go that general direction. Anywhere between Texas and there, they're allowed to get off the bus. So I am, yeah. I'm sure that our governors are not listening. I wish they would, but keep it up. Keep going. Get on it.
No joke.
Get on it. So I appreciate Todd submitting this. So I tried to pull this up as you were talking on the first question. I tried to research this real quick just to try to see if there's any validity to it. I don't know. It appears as though there's some benefits, government benefits, if you're seeking asylum. But it's hard to find anything about this information for some reason. Kind of like those airplane rides that Biden had at night. They've hidden. There just isn't information about it. It's not being released. And Ryan, don't you assume there's got to be some type of government subsidy going that way?
So there's something. I mean,
yeah, but I don't know how they're delivering it. I don't know how much. Shouldn't we be allowed access to know those questions?
Yeah, shouldn't we get to know? Yeah, you would think.
I think that is it Peter Ducey needs to ask your little girlfriend, the press secretary,
Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is,
baby Beetlejuice.
Yes, baby Beetlejuice.
So I don't know if Todd's information is accurate or not, but there it is. So we are what we are. Rebecca, hello. I have a question and answer. What is your opinion on MagnaWave therapy for market animals?
I know lots of people that do it. I know lots of people that believe in it. I have never had an animal of my own or one that I sold have it, so I can't give you any personal firsthand knowledge on it. But I do know, I know a lot of people that I respect their opinions that does use this therapy and does think it is beneficial.
No, and I'm in the same situation. I have not used it personally. I've had actually one of our clients owned one. And I believe we had an issue where a couple of our goats at Arizona miraculously came up lame overnight in the same pen that I had one of our clients.
Because you weren't watching it.
Yeah, that's about what it came down to. Had them use it, and I don't know that I saw a benefit or not, but I like the theory behind it. And I could be totally wrong. When we say MagnaWave, I'm assuming what we've got here is we're trying to increase circulation, blood oxygenation. It helps the body recover if we get more blood flow to that area. We're bringing more oxygen to that area. You would think it speeds up the muscle recovery, and any injuries, you would think that it would probably speed up that process. I see some logic behind it. I just don't have any personal experience with it, but I do know many people that I consider very, very intelligent that subscribe to it. I don't know that one session is going to do anything, but if we have an injury and over time, if we can speed the healing up of it, that's a benefit. No question.
No, again, I have the exact same opinion. I have no personal experience with it, but there are people that I highly respect and think are very intelligent that do think it's beneficial, use it, all this other stuff. On a side note, I do believe in animal chiropractor. So.
Yes, and I think there's good ones, and I think you can have some of them that don't understand what they're doing, screw one up.
I'm just the one that we use. I believe in him. I'll put it that way.
I think you can relate it similar to human chiropractors. I think you're going to get some immediate relief. I don't know how it is long term, but if you can get those popped right before they go into the ring or head to the show, I can't see how it wouldn't help.
And I think it is stupid that Texas, some shows do not allow animal chiropractors on the grounds. I think that is dumb, and I will state that for the record.
You know, I'm seeing that pop up in more rules. So who's defined it? How do we define your, like I will pop some of the goats' necks. I don't feel real comfortable doing it, but occasionally I will do it. Am I considered a chiropractor? Is that illegal then?
I don't know. I think it's stupid. Why would you not let anybody there on grounds to help the general health and welfare of all the animals at the show?
And I believe there's some MagnaWaves that aren't allowed as well. Yeah. So it doesn't. It goes back to just sometimes we don't have people in positions making these rules that are either educated or have enough experience, or I don't know what reason they would come up with. Sounds like a county fair board to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So my only warning on the MagnaWave, and I think there's some validity to it, do not expect if you have one that's tight-topped or injured or something like that, don't expect one session the night before the show or the morning of the show is going to miraculously change everything. That I do not think is going to happen. Will it benefit? Right. Probably. Prolonged use, several days going into it, maybe a little more benefit, but I don't think one session is just going to do it. So don't use it once and it didn't do much and think, well, this is terrible. If you're going to go into it, buy into it full force and give it a true chance. But don't expect miracles just with one treatment is where I can end it. Ryan, you know what? I think we have a record.
The longest topic ever that you told me would never.
I told you it would be the shortest topic ever.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go.
Did I say I was wrong yet?
Yep, you did. I'm glad you could admit those things.
Well, I'm good, Ryan. Thank you, and Clifton. Thank you for holding in there. Clifton just starts the recording and leaves, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't blame him.
Thank you very much. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now. You hear?